Very few indeed have come even this far. And yet your journey is far from over.
Dark Souls 2, Scholar of the First Sin, coming out at a bit of an awkward time, I would say.
Yeah.
We now live in a post-Bloodborne world, and I think it's fair to say that Bloodborne has been fairly well received, especially by us. But what's nice about Scholar of the First Sin is it's coming out to platforms where people don't necessarily get to play Bloodborne. Bloodborne only came out on the PS4, and I would argue, from the little that I've played, it is actually a substantial improvement, this new upgrade. The frame rate was rock solid. It was smoother than I've ever ran ever ran Dark Souls 2 outside of a PC. The lore stuff they're adding is actually pretty substantial. In fact, it already came out in an earlier update, if you haven't seen it, or at least most of it did. And the other thing is what they're doing with it's sort of a remixed version of the game. And I thought, like, oh, they'll just kind of mix up a few enemies here and there. But that wasn't true at all. From what I've seen, they mostly just add enemies, but it makes it substantially harder. So as you're going to fight the Dragon Rider, for instance, you know how there's that chest to the right of the fog door?
Yes.
There was one of those silver knights just right in front of the chest.
Awesome.
And so I couldn't get to the chest unless I fought that knight. And because I'm on this tiny little platform, and because there's another giant knight to the left of me, I had to rethink that encounter.
That part too, I remember there used to be no bridge, and you have to jump to it, and now they added a little path so that guy can like come at you and attack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question though. Is this new enemy placement New Game Plus only, or is it just the base game?
No, it's the base game.
Okay.
It's the base game, so I made a fresh character, and I experienced all these things right away. And I even noticed something in the tutorial. I couldn't get through one of the tutorial sections because there was a guy with a stone guy in front of it. I would have to use a branch of, what is it called? Branch of fragrant yore, something like that, to unfreeze him. And so, in so many ways, it feels like a brand new game, and it looks so much better. In fact, I would say it looks very comparable to the PC version. You can tell that the lighting has been tweaked a little bit. It still doesn't look as good as some of the early videos, but you have a substantial upgrade on your hands. The problem that I have with Scholar of the First Sin, and I don't know if you guys agree with me, is it's fragmenting the user base. So the Scholar of the First Sin users will be playing on different servers than those who have the base game. The other problem that I have with it is I feel like PC users are really getting the shaft. So if you are a Dark Souls 2 player on PC and you have all the DLC, it's $19.99 to upgrade. If you don't, it's $29.99. And if you're just buying it from scratch, then it's $49.99. Hopefully that made sense.
I feel like Souls has always given the PC community the shaft.
Right,
Yeah.
right. But the thing is when you think about the jump from PS3 to PS4 or Xbox 360 to Xbox One, you notice it. It runs better, it looks better. But from what I've seen of Scholar of the First Sin on PC, I can't notice a huge improvement. Yes, it's running under DirectX 11, but if I was a PC user, I would just be pretty upset. It's like, am I really getting my money's worth here? Like, yes, the enemies are mixed up a little bit, but is that worth it?
I played on PC mostly.
Yeah, I did too.
I'm really curious to see what it looks like. Like, it looks pretty good. I don't know. Would they just add DirectX 11 and that's it? It's $20?
Yeah.
Why?
And their argument is that they couldn't just add DirectX 11 support into the PC version. But that doesn't make sense to me because there are a lot of PC games where when you boot them up, you can either choose DirectX 9 or DirectX 11. And so maybe there's some technical component that I don't fully understand.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest worry to me is the fragmentation of the user base.
Yeah, I think that's bad. Especially a community known on that.
I mean, I think it's been long enough, though, where everyone's standing in Dark Souls 2, the original version, is hardcore. The user base has been through the game multiple times. You're going to be grouping up with New Game Plusers. Now it's kind of a reset button, which I appreciate. So it gives it that freshness with Scholar of the First Sin, going through on regular New Game and grouping up with people who have never played Dark Souls before. I always like that vibe.
Definitely. And, it's nice that you're not just going through the game again, that there will be significant surprises along the way. That's cool. The other thing is, and this will definitely not apply to everyone, but after playing 60 hours of Bloodborne
Here we go.
within the last month, I find it really hard to go back to Dark Souls.
Me too.
And it's not that I dislike Dark Souls anymore. It's like, oh, Bloodborne is totally superior. It's just the combat is deliberately slower. And it's in a way where I just prefer Bloodborne more. Bloodborne feels like it's a step further, and so I don't know, if I was just a average person and I was playing Bloodborne, and I probably hadn't seen everything there was to see in Bloodborne, if I would spend, X amount of money to upgrade, depending on what platform I want to get it on.
I'm having a hard time now thinking about upgrading. I love Dark Souls, but I don't know if I want to do it now.
Yeah. And again, it's not just a new coat of paint. It's cool that they're doing new things, but it's weird to go back. And the other thing that I want to say about PC that's nice is, maybe you don't upgrade right away. Maybe you don't spend the 20, the 30, the $50 right away, and you wait for a Steam sale because
That's gonna happen,
when summer
yeah.
rolls around, you'll probably get a discount. When Christmas rolls around, you'll probably get an even steeper discount. Is this something that I think is worth $10? Yeah. Maybe even to some people worth the $20? Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
But right now, when I'm so in the thralls of Bloodborne, would I spend $50? Probably not.
Yeah, it definitely came out at a weird time. I love remasters more than your average fellow, especially when it's such a substantial upgrade, like you're saying, like new enemies, faster frame rate. It's clearly the superior version of this game.
Right.
It might be just a little too close to Bloodborne right now for me.
Right.
My heart can only take so much punishment. So maybe, when I eventually get through Bloodborne a few times, New Game Plus, whatever, some months have passed, there's some distance, I will probably go back to Scholar of the First Sin.
Do we know how much the console versions are?
So the console versions,
It's 50, I believe.
it's 50,
50,
I believe.
okay.
Yes.
Yeah, PS4.
I think it's like a good buy if you don't have a PS4 and you can't play Bloodborne. I'd say yeah. If you just have PC or Xbox, sure. Because especially if you haven't played the DLCs for those are
Right.
incredible.
Right. That's the other point is
There's
if you
so much
haven't played the
game.
DLC and the idea of playing through a remixed version of Dark Souls 2 is appealing to you, I think the DLC, all three pieces, are pretty excellent. I like one or two of the pieces more than the third one, but as a whole, especially when you play through all three of them one after the other, I think it's an incredible experience. Some of the best bosses in the entire series, I would argue, and definitely some of the cooler lore moments. You don't realize until you kind of go back and you reflect on it how well those pieces of the DLC tie the lore together.
That's something I wanted to bring up. If you have never played Dark Souls 2, this is a sure bet.
Yeah.
This is a hard recommendation. Dark Souls 2 definitive version, absolutely. For me personally, living in this age where there are too many games to play,
Yeah.
I've already went through Dark Souls 2 in the DLCs, so I'm obviously going to move on to something new because there's just too much. There's too much to play right now, guys.
Right, and it's a
But if
case
you've never
by
played
case
it-
basis. And the last point that I wanted to bring up is, how much a game's release affects the attention it gets and sort of the perception that it has. I wonder, if this game came out in June or July, where maybe there wasn't as much to play,
Remember-
maybe we
yeah.
weren't so close to Bloodborne, if the tone of this conversation would be different.
Yeah, remember when Dying Light came out in like January, February? There was
Right.
nothing. Everyone was just craving. Everyone was looking forward to Bloodborne and Batman and all these games.
It-
And we saw the Dark Souls trailers, and we're like, oh, I want to play that right now because we hadn't played Bloodborne yet.
Right.
It's like, oh my god, if it had came out in that drought right there for that
Yeah,
1 or
that's
2
true.
months, we would have probably all blasted through it again.
Right. Right. I just, especially for remasters and games like Dying Light, I think it's important that they find those pockets. And I'm very curious to see what the sales of Scholar of the First Sin end up being. But thank you guys for the conversation. It depends on what kind of user you are or what you will get out of this experience.
If you've never played it,
Yeah, I think if you've never played it, it's very
must
easy to
play.
recommend.
Yeah.
So, absolutely. Thanks, guys.
Yep.
until the curse touches our flesh. We are bound by this yoke. As true as the dark that churns within men. What do you want, truly?